Welcome to Up Your Game from the Chicago Curling Club Rookies. I'm Matt Peterson. Thanks for joining us this evening. We're talking about advanced strategy and with our panel discussion tonight. Today, we're fortunate to have some of the best curlers from Chicago Curling Club, skips who've won club championships, league nights, spiels, opens, doubles, you name it. These folks have been able to win it and are oftentimes some of the hardest people to beat on the ice. We're very fortunate to have them. We have Debbie Lang, Adam Miller, and Tate Topkin. I'm going to turn it over to you guys and have you do a quick introduction, and then we'll get into the questions for tonight. Thank you. Deb?
Okay. I'm Debbie Lange, and I've curled since my late 20s. I'm going to take the fifth on exactly how long that is, but it's a long time.
10 years.
In years, yeah. I've been a strong club curler for many years. I've played down many times for the women's championships for Illinois and the mixed, and gone to several national championships for both. And just been a very active bonspieler as well.
Tate Topkin. I'm entering my 11th full season of curling. Started out after the 2010 Olympics and kind of did the traditional progression of starting out as a lead in rookies and other leagues, and then kind of just moving up positions, and probably been full-time skipping teams in the last 6 years, I would say. Don't have a club championship yet on the men's. Have a 2 or 3 mixed. Adam beat me last year, so maybe it's only 2. A few spiels under my belt.
Adam.
Yeah, I've been curling for 10 years or something like that. I have had a fair amount of success. I've won a club championship at third. I've won a bunch of mixed championships, including skipping last year. Sorry, Tate, that was a really fun game, though. So
it was a good game.
That was good. But perhaps the highlight of my career is winning rookies at third for Tate, who was skipping.
All right.
That was really a really good time.
That's probably one of my claims to fame is I won rookies league as a lead, a second, a vice, and a skip. And my last year was Adam as my was on my team.
What's terrific about curling is, well, for skipping, there are typically 3 styles. You can be hit centric, you can be draw centric, or you can be balanced. Can you talk about what goes into describe your tendency, and why do you prefer that tendency?
I think a couple things dictate tendencies, and I know you have stats on what we actually do, so I might be saying opposite of what I actually really do. I think I always get kind of the reputation of being a more hit centric, but I probably was early on when I skipped, but I think I've kind of became more of a draw type, or bringing draws more into play. I think the game dictates what you're really going to do and what team you're playing with too. I mean, if you're not too confident on your takeout game in a certain game, you're going to be a little hesitant unless, the game really calls for it. So I think game and team, kind of helps.
So would you say at this point, you're more balanced, or are you hit centric?
I'd say I'm more balanced. I think I play the game on what the end is calling for. I kind of have a personal strategy and belief that if I'm ever up more than 1 in any game and we don't have hammer, or even if we do have hammer, I'm always playing it into the house.
Yeah. Well, how would you describe your tendencies and how you approach the game?
I would say for me, it's definitely evolved over time. As a newer skip, I would say I played the game what I would call very selfishly, and I had everybody else do the dirty work, steal the shots I didn't want, and tried to always leave myself the open draw in the end. It doesn't work all the time, of course. And I think over time I've evolved to be a little more balanced in that, like he was saying, just what the situation dictates. I'm a big proponent of playing the scoreboard and playing accordingly based upon the scoreboard. So, that being said, I still, I love that open draw to the button. So I
yes, you do.
Yeah, it's nice to like it when you make it.
Yeah, she does it
at a high rate.
close. Adam, so what's your tendency in your approach?
I wonder if I think I'm different than I actually am. Recently, I've been trying to remind myself that I don't need to hit as often as I do as a team, right? I find myself maybe playing a little bit more conservatively than I need to early and ends, throwing more hits than I necessarily want. And there's been a couple of times I've recognized in an end, I'm like, well, as a team, we don't know what draw weight is because we've been throwing maybe more hits than we would want to. So I've been trying to be a little bit more deliberate about, hey, maybe we can throw some more draws, especially early in games, to just get a sense of what the ice is doing. So when we need to make that langy draw to the 4-foot, we know what we can do. We know how to get it there.
So would you say you're a hitter or more balanced?
I like to think I'm a little more balanced.
And it's good to have tendencies, and we all will have our tendencies and preferences. What I wanted to ask you now is, so if you know where you start with, what becomes the next most critical element? Is it your own team's capabilities? Is it the opponent's capabilities? End situation? Is it the ice conditions? And if I've missed something, what else do you make in your consideration when you look at applying a strategy for an end?
All the above. It really is. It really is, though. It's even game to game with your own team. Some nights the player just might be a little off on something, and you might catch it early. Might be a release, or they're just not feeling it. And if they're flashing a couple takes, and maybe not going to call that third take on them. Maybe just call a draw in just to maybe get some confidence going. So keep calling a shot they're struggling with, and there's a mental aspect to all this too. But it's end to end, and at our level too, it's scoreboards change really quick. You're comfortable with a 4-point lead, and then next thing you know, you're down 1. So you're playing a hit game, and then all of a sudden, we need to get our guard weight down and our draw weight down, or we're gonna be shaking here in 6. So it changes rapidly, game to game, end to end. So I think you just always have to be ready to adapt to each situation, and that takes time to learn too, because you always come in with a preset idea. And especially at our level, we play against each other enough, we kind of pick up on other people's tendencies. So you go into a game being like, I'm playing, player A tonight, so he likes to do this, so I'm going to do this. And then player A comes out and doesn't do what he's or she's going to do. And you're like, oh, okay. So you got to change it up.
Yeah, I definitely, I do like to try to play to my player strengths. Again, it might not always be the correct shot, and the best shot is a made shot, of course. But I think in my planning in a game and end, I do definitely try to look at that and play that way. Hopefully your player. You don't always know your opponent, but I definitely try to work with what I have and bring the best out in them. And sometimes that's just also keeping everybody positive. And, the more shots they make, the happier they're going to be, and the more shots they're going to continue to make as well.
Adam, what factors go into your calculus?
I mean, the first thing is the shot you're calling, you got to make it, right? And so you want to make sure you're putting your players, your team in a position to be successful, right? And so, if Tate's saying if they're struggling with takes, maybe the take is strategically the right call, but looking at your team and looking at the situation, if there's a run on the ice and the stone's in a spot where a takeout's going to be really tricky, maybe you got to find another way to get after it or find another way to do it. But the first thing for me is, what can my team make? What are their strengths? And I want to play to that. So I think there's a lot to consider in terms of what your team is capable of doing and capable of making consistently. But then, of course, looking at the scoreboard, looking at the end, looking at whether or not you have hammer, all of those considerations matter too for a given shot or a given end strategy.
Do you dictate the play? So in a lot of the answers so far, I've been hearing you say how, you adapt to the situation, you're reading that piece. But when you're calling shots and you're calling a game, are you trying to be the aggressor and take control of the end and dictate what the opponent's going to react to you, or do you find yourselves reacting to the opponent?
Oh, I think you always try to dictate play, but I think in the NLBL, scoreboard dictates play. I mean, if you're down 6, you're not going to be throwing takes. I mean, so scoreboard truly dictates play. Early ends, start game, you want to dictate. You want to put forth what you plan to do.
Well, here's what I mean by that, Tate, because yeah, sure, the scoreboard will dictate kind of your shot selections and how you approach it, right? But when the individual shots and when you develop an end, after each shot, are you considering, is it a consideration for you, I'm going to put this shot here because I want to force the opponent to make this decision?
Yes. So yeah, you're always trying to dictate play. You're trying to maybe force a mistake. I mean, it's strategy. It's tricky. I mean, you try your hardest to dictate play. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're not always successful, but yeah. So yeah. Deb, do you dictate play or are you reactive?
Well, I'm definitely trying to dictate play. I'm trying to force them into making the harder shot, and hoping for a miss. Again, it doesn't always work that way. But yeah, I'm trying to force them to make their mistakes. So I'm trying to call those kinds of shots, basically.
All things being equal, if I want my opponent reacting to what I'm doing, right? That would be the ideal. That means I'm making my shots as called. I'm putting them in tough places, and they have to react to that. Doesn't always work out that way, but that's
one of the things that we learned in the team building panel was playing with the team that you played with for a long time can be a real advantage. I think you mentioned earlier that your own team's tendencies can dictate some of the strategy. How big of a factor is it knowing how your team plays and having a good understanding of what they can?
Beyond just knowing the tendencies of the shot and the release and what they can make, the communication is essential. I enjoy playing with new curlers, but oftentimes I'll give a call as a skipper, like the stone's coming down, and I'll yell something. My team that I play with knows what I mean. The newer curlers don't. And so just now they're a little bit late on a sweep call, or they're late getting up, or they're late switching. And that could be the difference in a shot. So a lot of that communication and building that up, and just making sure that with your team, you talk through the communication. What do I mean when I say whoa or up, or what do I say when I say close? What does that mean? What am I expecting, or what am I seeing? And so just making sure that everyone's on the same page in terms of sweep calls, in terms of communication. And also it helps, the more you play together, the more you understand the strategy that you're trying to do as a team. And that's super helpful to all be on that same page.
I agree with everything he said there. The more you play together, the better your communication is going to be. the more they're going to understand, you know, the skip's strategy, what the skip wants, the skip's calls. I have to say something. After I curled at another club for many, many years, I think that it's also good to curl with a variety of people and a variety of skips. I think I learned so much over time from not just one person, but from so many different people. And I kind of put that all together and formed like how I want to play. But I think I think it's good for people to mix it up and curl with other people, and you will learn a lot.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I think a big thing is because all of our deliveries at our level are different, and you pick up on that. So you broom different curlers differently, and you have confidence that, you know, that's what it's going to be instead of you're guessing. You're like, you know, a curler you're not used to curling with, you'd be like, yeah, this should be the broom, but is it for this person? So the more you play with someone, you say, okay, you're confident where you're putting the broom down. The other thing is, like, I can speak to like my mixed team, is we've been playing together for a while now. And I think a lot of times front ends and even vice skips get intimidated by the skip. And the skip says, this is what we're doing. And there's no like pushback. Sometimes there need to be pushback. So the familiarity and the comfortability of, you know, having a team that's played a while, though, you know, like Scott and Kaylee will not second guess me, but give me a different option. They'll say, well, you know, how about this? Because, you know, a lot of times us skips, we like to make the hero shots, right? And it doesn't always need to be a hero shot, you know, and sometimes you got to be brought down to earth and be like, yeah, you know, the triple takeout would be nice, but how about you just throw a guard and then we win? It's like, yeah, that makes no sense. You know, so you know, but if you're playing with someone you're not familiar with, you're not necessarily going to, you know, speak up. You know, the front end, they're always back there talking, be like, oh, I think we should do this and that. And a lot of times it's, you know, possibility that they have valid points, but they're not going to say anything unless you're comfortable with your team. And that comes with playing with the team, you know, consistently and for a while.
I've heard it oftentimes that the team that figures out the ice first has a definitive advantage. How big is ice conditions? And do you have any tips or tricks on how to figure the ice out faster than the other team?
Watch every shot coming down the ice. And I have a hard time doing this, but what you should do is not be one side heavy in the first couple ends. You know, shouldn't be throwing an out turn on all 8 stones. Because then when you get to the third end, you're like, you know, you have to play that other side and you're like, you know, it's going to be half second different. So usually try to vary the shots if you can, so you can, and make sure you're paying attention to what the other team's doing too.
Yeah, I think, you know, you want to try to play as many lines as you can and learn from it. I think I have a tendency to like to call certain shots with a specific weight. You can make only some shots you can make with a specific weight, but I think when the ice is really slow, you got to keep it simple. You know, don't get tricky, complicated on the weight calls. Just stick with board plus. This is what we need, and just keep it simple. I
think similarly, that idea of just keeping it simple is good, regardless of ice conditions. But like if the ice is bad, then, you know, if there's runs somewhere, there's stuff going on that's maybe a little confusing that is going to impact the game. You know, trying to keep that a little bit simpler as well, so you can navigate around that, or you can work around that in any way. But yeah, for the most part, in terms of figuring out the ice, watch, you know, every single stone come down. See if you notice anything in the release that could impact how it's going to curl or how it's going to move. Pay attention to where the stone starts its break. Think about how much sweeping was on a given rock, right? All of those factors matter in terms of where that stone ends up, and they can help you figure out how you're going to call the game.
As a quick follow-up, you guys have curled enough that you can look at a rock and you can judge its speed. Do you also time, and how effective are watches in timing for skips in figuring out line calls or speed weights?
I just the past couple of years, I started as a skip timing hog to hog. That's the most consistent time you can get kind of down as a skip, and I use that mainly as a sense of, is the ice getting quicker or is the ice getting slower? Or, you know, comparatively to how it was before. The having curled with the same folks a lot, I very much trust their read of the speed of the ice as well for draws. So I can go down there and, you know, and ask Matt, ask Catherine, ask Sarah, hey, what's the speed right now? What do I got to throw here? They'll give me something, and I'll do my best to throw that, and they're pretty good at judging that. So I use timing hog to hog as a skip. When I'm sweeping, not skipping, I'll do the, you know, the back to hog as well and try to figure that out. But
Yeah, I'm timing as a skip as well. You know, it's great when you have your front end timing. I feel my numbers aren't matching up to theirs, but you know, mine is consistent enough that throughout the game, I know, you know, that my number's going to be a little bit off from theirs, but my number's consistent, so I know what the ice is like based upon that consistent number. I may not be getting the same number that they're getting, but it is consistent.
I've left my stopwatch in the locker the last 3 seasons, I think. Just as a skip, I depend on my front end, and I've had a pretty consistent front end the last few years, and I just know they're going to give me the number for a draw. Like I played with you, Matt, last year. I'd ask you, you know, or Travis or Scott Caleb. I would never, and I just was never consistent timing from the other end, and my brain doesn't work well enough to do hog to hog and try to figure it out. So I just trust that, you know, if I'm playing with newer curlers like in the Old Lang Syne or something, what I kind of do is listen to the other team with their split. And be like, their front end will say, oh, that was a 3-7 or whatever. I was like, okay, so draws like 3-7. But yeah, I got rid of the stopwatch as a skip. If I'm front end or sweeping, I'll time. Try to stop doing that later on my sweeping days too, and just try to depend on seeing it. It's good for the skip though to have someone timing though, just to get an idea, you know, because 0.2 of a second makes a difference.
It does. Well, and this is all good tips. You should always be listening, picking up intel from the other conversations, the other team as well. I put together some slides to go over some situations. So I'm going to put that up on the screen, and I just want to challenge you to talk through how you would, what shot would be the right approach. So let me go ahead and share the screen. What I did here is, here's the first scenario. So you don't have hammer, you're in the 4th end, you're down 1. You're on your lead's 2nd stone. We're red, and so the X stone is the option. So you can either do a freeze down to their stone in the house, you can guard their stone, or you can hit and roll. Adam, since you volunteered, where would you go? What would your gut and your first instinct be?
still early in the game, or it's mid-game.
Yeah.
Leads 2nd stone. Are these my only 3 options? Freeze,
If
guard,
you have a different one, go
hit.
ahead and you can throw out another option too.
The down 1. It's early. We have that center guard, which I like. I don't mind option A if kind of these are my 3 options there. If I want to go with my tendencies, I'd probably do C, to hit and roll. But no, I like kind of trying to get a steal here if you can, and loading up that center line is going to be better to try to get that steal. So that's kind of where my mind is going.
Deb?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like option B.
No.
And yeah, I do like option. I mean, if the stone is gettable, I kind of like option C there. Yeah.
Okay. Tate?
I don't mind B. You need guards to score, right? And it is early, but I would probably move the guard a little tighter if you could, and maybe just more exposed, so you have a possible tap and run on it a little later. Maybe call shot A.
Yeah.
With the idea that if you come up a touch short, it's a stone that you can use later. But probably call A with the idea of like tolerance is leaving a guard that you could use later.
I like that, and just for the listeners, and if you're newer curlers and picking up on this, by having a lot of stones in play, that would be considered an aggressive strategy. So in the case of A and B, those are bringing stones into the center, and you're closing down that scoring area, and you're putting lots of stones in play. That can build big ends. The C option is more of a defensive strategy where you're getting rid of stones and you're keeping the game very, in a way, simple, fewer stones in play would be the theory behind it. I like the strategy that you were employing of, hey, you might call this shot, and if it goes a little deep, then you've got A as a freeze. If you hit the shot that you want, you've got your guard. And that's a kind of a good way to approach it. So, and there's no right or wrong in curling. The one factor or a couple factors, we don't know what the ice does, and we don't know what their second, or actually their third will do, right? If their third can't hit, I love Deb's C option. That's terrific, right? So those would be other factors that you had mentioned that you want to consider. Cool. Well, let's go to scenario 2. A little bit different. So now you have hammer. You're in the 9th end, and this time you're up 1. So you're at your lead's second stone, and what do? You're red. You've got the traditional setup. Do you split the house? Do you come around? Do you tick Tate?
Option B is ideal. Tick shot at our level, it's just, you get into trouble with that. You nose it, push it up a little bit, and then all of a sudden now you got 3 center guards. You don't want that. Splitting the house, at this point, it's almost, you could be a race to the 4 foot. If you can drop one in right there on the top of the 4, you're in good shape. Then you start ripping some guards after that. So I think I would go for B.
Deb?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards B as well. On A, there's the opponent can hit that outside rock and roll into the button there.
Right.
And it's going to be tough to get to that. And yeah, see, it's kind of early to really worry about that at that point in time.
Let me follow up. If you're gonna go with the B,
Yeah.
where would you call the broom? Would you call it a little bit tighter where you might get the tick, or would you want to make sure you set a broom that would clear those guards and come into the house?
Oh, so B is drawing into the house, right?
Yep, correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And so what was your question? I'm sorry.
So B was what your preference, right?
Yes.
So where would you broom this? I think you'd obviously want to come down this side. If you can see my mouse.
Absolutely.
You come in. Would you broom it tight so that if the thrower missed it, you might get the tick in C? Or would you broom it a little bit wider to make sure you miss those, but then you kind of risk hanging it out there for a hit and roll under?
Well, yeah. So the problem being is that if you throw it through the house, you got nothing. So if you do broom it a little tighter and you tick, you have that.
Yep.
So that would be the best strategy, is to broom it a little bit tighter.
Adam, where are you going on this scenario?
B, absolutely. And the only thing I'll add in addition to what they said, which I agreed with, is ticking when there's two center guards there. Like, why didn't you tick the first one? Did you miss it? No, you didn't. You drew right around it. So why switch your strategy that you started the end with?
Sure.
Yeah, you brew it for a straight draw.
Yeah.
Just trust that you're going to make it. The problem is if you tighten the broom and you get a little rub, but not enough, and you just leave another guard. At this point, you want to get to the forefoot, make them start chasing, and you, like I said, scenario B, if you're there, you're in a good position.
Let me ask you guys is skip. So go ahead, Adam.
I was going to say, this goes back to earlier we were talking about, do you want to react to them or you want them reacting to you? And B makes them react to what you've done. Whereas when you're ticking here, you're just reacting to them. And I just think that the results in B as a call are going to be much better than A or C here.
So here's a little question. Your skips, you've made the broom call. You want it to come into the top 4. If you could let the thrower know how to miss this, how would you want them to miss it weight-wise? You want them to throw it through the house, be deep and leave some backing? Do you want it to be, if it's light, do you want it to be a guard? Do you want this shot to be light if they're going to miss it? Perfect or light, or what's the miss?
Yeah, I mean, I think light is okay. I mean, you don't want to be, top house isn't bad.
Right.
Top house is not bad.
Just short is good. You can pump it up.
Yep.
Yeah, anything above T in the house.
Yep.
In the house above T is great. If it's just short of the house, that's fine too. That's a usable stone. If you put this in the back house, that's a disaster because that's something that they can use as backing. That's just going to hurt you. So yeah, the miss here would be a wee bit short.
And the reason I asked this is in the shot making, we started to talk about what it goes into your thinking about. You certainly don't want to ever think about missing a shot, but it's good to be in tune with your team and the skip to know where that tolerance would be. You definitely don't want to be heavy here and give the opponent an out, right? I mean, you're in the back 4, they can come down and sit on it and your end's messed up. So
I think as a skip, lots of times you do want to say, through's better than short, let them know.
Yep, absolutely. All right, scenario 3. You're back to having without hammer. You're in the 10th end. You're up 1. It's your lead second stone. So what do? You've got a red in the house in the top 8. They've got a corner guard up. What do? Do you come down and freeze? Do you come under their corner, race them to that, or do you set up a guard of your own on your stone? Tate?
Right, without hammer, 10th end, up 1, lead second stone. So we're red, right?
Yes.
I don't mind B. Cut off their corner guard. I don't like C because you don't necessarily want to guard, and A kind of sets up a double and a hit and roll. Of course, they shouldn't be doing that if they're down 1. They should be throwing another guard or trying to come behind their own. I'd probably, this is actually a tricky one because we see this a lot. And it's always one you're kind of guessing on what you should do. I'd lean towards B. Maybe leave it a touch higher because if they can get to a half weight and roll behind, but then you have a short run. I'd probably lean towards B.
B. Deb, how about you?
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm really trying to avoid a double. I think that's your best chance of avoiding a double. I mean, C can work if it's the perfect guard. If you don't get the perfect guard, then they're going to hit and roll behind yours. So that's the problem with C. And I think A gives you a fairly good chance for a double. So I would go with B.
Adam?
I would. It was funny because immediately I kind of went, "Ooh, I don't know if I like B," and they both kind of went that way. The reason I kind of got dismissed that one is now they're playing under, you're playing underneath the corner. Now they could potentially come and sit on you.
Yep.
And start to build some stones up in the end. And so I didn't really like that. If you wanted to cut off the corner, I would maybe throw a C, throw that guard, but maybe a little higher so they can't quite get through that port. They can't use that guard they made.
Right.
But I don't like that shot either. I don't like A either because of the double. So I would throw a tap.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna say D, actually tap up to just tap that stone up to like the T line.
Yeah, so just make that double a little bit harder.
Get some separation.
Yeah.
And I'll be devil's advocate. The only downside about doing the tap is you could push it behind T, and now you're just giving the opponent some backing. Would you ever consider just throwing the stone through? You're up one. They want to bring it into a hit game?
No, not only up one. I think the tap, if you tap it straight back, you're in good shape. If you tap it on the open, even if you tap it behind the corner guard behind T and they come down to it, you can follow them down and start cutting off that way. So I like the tap. And if it's out in the open, they try to freeze, then you rip them both. And then keep it, you're keeping it open also. Keeping the action to the 4 foot. So I like the tap is probably the answer here.
Very good. All right. Let's go to scenario 4, and D is an actual option. E, F, G, H, we like it all. Scenario 4, you have hammer. It's the 9th end. You're down 1. This is your second stone. So they've got 2 in the house. What do you do? Do you build the guard? Do you hit and try to roll? Or do you freeze on one of their stones? Deb?
With hammer, 9th end, down 1. Okay. So I'm a little confused on your setup here.
So you were always red.
Yeah.
So they've got 2 in the house, right?
Yeah.
You got one in the 12 foot, one touching the 8, and you've got your choice. You can come down and start to set up a guard a little late in the end.
But it's your second rock.
It's your second stone, so you're out of the free guard. You could come and hit and roll is one of the options, or you could come down and tap or freeze down to one of their stones.
So you're saying my first red rock is out of play.
Our first 2 are.
Yeah, your first
3.
Your
first 3. What is my
red rocks are gone?
Like, how did we get in this situation? That's what I want to figure out.
This is
not ideal.
Have I been throwing my rocks through?
Somebody has.
Okay.
Or they got really tired. We are in the 9th end. They could have just thrown a few. The ice conditions changed. They're throwing hogs.
Yeah. So okay. I like C. I like C. You're in front of the T line. You got a backer.
And is that because you want to score more than 1? So your thinking is, I want to start putting more stones in the house. I've got to figure out a way to score 2, and I can't do that with.
Well, the problem is at this point in time, their next shot, they can take away your guard.
Yep.
Right. So that's what they're going to do. You put up that guard. So I feel you need some backer.
Solid. Adam, what's your thinking?
If these are the 3 options only, I would definitely go with C.
Well, if you had another option,
for all the reasons Deb said, not maybe a corner guard. Right, we've got hammer, so keeping that center open is worthwhile. And yeah, they're going to try to peel it out. But if you throw yourself a corner, maybe they jam it on their own yellow, maybe they just stuff it right on the nose and leave something there that you can hide behind. There's still, after this stone, 4 rocks to come. You really want to get a deuce out of this if you can. Taking one is kind of is not great, because I mean, I guess at our level too, stealing is not that uncommon, right, in the last end. So taking one is not a disastrous outcome, but yeah, of these options, probably C. Okay. Even if corner guard were an option, I'd still probably go C.
Tate?
I'd go B. If you can get that hit and roll, blanks in play, then, you know,
right.
And then, I mean, right now, the way it's set up, you're going to be drawing for 1.
Yeah.
So you try to get the action going towards each other and blank the end, grab hammer down 1 in the 10th, and try to score your deuce and win the game.
I like it. All right. Good info. Good insight. Scenario 5. So you have hammer. You're in the 10th end. You're tied. You're on the skip's first stone. What do? I know this one's a little bit junky in a way. So remember the red. You're red. The red X stone is what is thrown. In this first one, you've done a hit and stick. So you've hit a yellow stone and it's come over and knocked your red out this way and your other red kicked out this way. In the B scenario, you can just do a little tap up. So you're unlocking the yellow-red combo here, keeping your red stone there, tapping your red into the button area. And so you're lying 1, 3, and 4. Or you can guard because you're sitting shot at the top of the 4-foot. Remember, you're tied in the 10th end. This is your first stone with hammer. So the opponent only has 1 more shot. Where do you go? Adam?
Oh, man, I got to look at these.
I know, right? Moved up to calculus.
That's my dog.
Yeah,
so we are, okay. Just talking through this. So go ahead, Matt.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I would say, so I'm trying to see the setup before. So essentially the C situation is how the stones were before you threw, and then you added the guard on top.
That's the cleanest way to look at it. You're sitting 1 and 3. They're sitting 2 and 4, and now you have to throw. Do you guard your shot stone? Do you tap it, or do you come down and hit and stick? Move them all around.
There's so many factors here in terms of what I would call, and the biggest one is how has the other skip been playing? What are their tendencies, right? Because A, as an option, they're going to be able to, there's plenty of room for them to kind of draw and hide behind. And if they make that real nice, we got to throw kind of a run back at it. And that one doesn't leave us a whole lot of possibilities as for a good result. You just got to nut the shot. So I don't know if A is what I would do. I don't mind B or C, depending on a lot of situations. What I like about B, if it ends up exactly as it does, you're sitting in a pretty good spot to have a lot of options if they make their shot, or at least a lot of chances. And then C, you just have to throw a really good guard. But the way the yellow and red are, they've got an option to either pick the red out one way if the guard's this way, or, you know, push the yellow into the red the other way if the guard's on the other side. So you're going to kind of leave them a shot.
Right.
So talking through it, B seems to be the best result. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the shot I would call, depending on a whole bunch of factors, but B seems to be the best result.
Okay. Deb, how do you approach it?
Oh boy, this is kind of tough here. Boy, I mean, part of me, I'd like to get another rock in the house.
If you could get a red stone maybe down to here, the 4-foot.
Yeah, I think like if you can draw something down in there, I mean, be nice to be sitting 1 and 2,
right,
where they can't get at, you know, both of them. And if you do that, they're not going to end up, more than likely, they're not going to end up as shot.
Right.
your red and the 4-foot is going to end up at shot if they can get to that.
You're tied, so really all you need is one. You either keep your one or make sure you have a
Yeah,
last shot,
yeah,
right? It's really
yeah,
the day.
yeah, exactly, right.
All right, Tate, what do you think?
Hey, you make that shot, they have to address you because you're shot. So they're gonna probably throw a takeout, and then you have a draw to the 8-foot for the win.
See, I would if you threw A on me, I'd draw around you, right? If draw
Then
back
you have-
4, make you throw a
you have
draw
a-
right after a hit.
You have a short run.
Yeah.
Short run, or
that's-
you can follow them down if they're a little bit deep, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to
I mean,
get
that's-
perfectly, you're still leaving the button area uncovered.
And then you're forcing their skip to make the draw too.
Yep.
And to get behind cover. I might have a pick or just make contact for the win. C is not an option. That's just too many things can go wrong there. B's, I mean, if you get that result, not horrible, but A just gives you the best. It gives you ideally most likely a draw to the 8-foot or 4-foot for the win, and that's the shot you're supposed to be able to make as a skip. So I'd say A, just to
A, keep it clean.
keep it clean.
All right, excellent. Great insight on the different scenarios and the approaches. Very insightful. Question out of the box. So there are a lot of novice skips. They typically make these kinds of mistakes. They're always trying to be shot rock after each rock. They don't use the free guard zone. They don't peel. They wait too long to peel guards. They lack that situational awareness. What's the score? What end? What's the objective for the end? And they ignore the risk versus reward. So there might be this great double for 4 or a low risk shot to get 1 and give up 1 if they miss it. Better to take that high risk shot. Would you agree with that list? Do you want to elaborate on anything? And did I miss anything that we should tell new skips or club skips to look out for?
I still see a lot of newer skips when they're down playing a wide open hit. I don't understand it. Even skips that have been around for a while, you still see it.
Well, you see it the other way too. Someone has a big lead and they're throwing guards and
Right.
you're like,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
So you see it both ways.
Yeah, and in some of those cases, is when you tell your thrower better through than short, that kind of a thing.
Yep. So bad situational awareness. Do you agree with that? Adam, do you agree with that list? Chasers and whatnot, or is there something that I missed?
I think the list is pretty good. One thing I would add, and I need to remind myself of this sometimes, is to not overcomplicate things, right? In the grand scheme of things, there's 3 shots you can throw: a guard, a draw, and a hit. And those are your options. So pick one, right? There, sometimes skips are trying to, have the whole conference and talk about every possible outcome and all of that. You got 3 options. Right. And obviously there's some variance within, how much weight are you going to throw? Where do you want the guard to be? Is it tight? Is it high? But, ultimately, try to keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it.
The other thing I still see quite a bit is even knowing where to place the broom. Sometimes you got a thrower who throws a lot of spin and their rocks react totally different. And they put down the same broom as someone who doesn't have a lot of spin, and they don't understand why it was missed, but it's the amount of rotation on that rock, and that's why it was missed. So it's just being aware of actually the throwing tendencies, someone sliding down the line, the proper line, and how they release it. Are they narrow the line? They're going to pitch it, and it's going to go out wide, and just how their throwers are throwing, and being aware of that and how to broom them for it.
Tate, one thing I would add to that list too, and it goes to they sometimes skips won't peel stones out early enough, but I would even add to that, sometimes skips will give up on peeling stones too early. They might have missed the first peel, and then they feel they have to draw in. And I think that there's benefit in just continuing to pound away to just open your last shot up if there's any way, hope, or shape to that. But what do you think about the list, and would you add anything to it?
Yeah, I think you see people give up on the peel game a little quick, but also when you're down, you might see someone give up on the guard game a little quick. You keep throwing a guard. Our game last year in the mixed, Adam, like we had that situation. It was like, do I come in or do I throw another guard? And we had a discussion about it, and I was like, I still like one more guard, and make him make the decision, and he made a really good draw. I think one thing is risk reward is sometimes I get into this. Sometimes, giving up one isn't the worst thing. Live to fight another day instead of, trying to make a shot that, yeah, I might be able to score here, but if I don't make it, I give up 3 or 4. Maybe it's just draw to cut them down or something like that. So the risk reward, I think, gets missed a lot is you live to fight another day. And at our level, you can make up 3 points in the next end.
Right.
So
to the point about peeling guards and giving up too soon, back to that mixed game, Tate, I should have peeled that guard on my 7th rock. I didn't. I threw a nice draw. You threw a heck of a shot, and then I was able to get one right back. But I should have just peeled the guard, kept it wide open, and given myself a draw there. And I made it a little bit harder for myself than I needed to.
As you guys reflect, and I appreciate all the insight today, what advice would you give to a newer skip or developing skip at the club that you'd like to have them, that would help them up their game?
Watch and learn. When I came up, like I said, I went through the ranks, kind of every position for multiple years. And when I was front end, I watched our skip, and in my head I was trying to think, oh, this is maybe what I do, and then watch the other skip too, how they're calling the game, and then ask questions afterwards. Hey, in the third end, we're here. Why did you do this? Oh, because XYZ. And you're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That makes more sense than, what I was thinking. So, yeah, pay attention and ask questions. That's, I think, the biggest thing.
Deb?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, there's so much curling on TV that you can watch, and it's a different game. I mean, what they play on TV, like what we play as a club curler, what they play doesn't necessarily work for a club curler, so I think just the basics of putting up your guards, playing that 3 guard zone, and sticking with some simple things is a good rule, and always watching those lines and the amount of curl, and being aware that it changes as the game goes along. Everything changes. It gets faster, and then it gets slower. It's always changing.
No, good points. Always watch. Adam?
I'm going to steal Deb's answer from earlier, where she said play with a bunch of different skips, right? You'll learn things you like, you'll learn things you don't, and I think that's a good way to go about it. And the other thing I'll say is I'll kind of compare it to chess, is learn kind of the different opening lines, right? So if they throw up a center guard, okay, what are you trying to do? What do you need to do? So if you can learn like the different lines, the different options for the first, the lead stones, those first 4 rocks of an end, into the second stones, then as things get complicated, as shots are half misses or whatnot, now you can react to what's going on, but kind of know that initial strategy so you can kind of play with that and then adapt from there.
One more thing that on that is, as a skip too, you should have 5 shots in your mind when the other team's throwing. So I always look at it as, what's the called shot? And if they make that shot, what's my shot going to be? if they miss it short, what am I going to do? If they do this, what am I going to do? So I play out 6 scenarios in my head. So when it comes to my shot, there's not a minute, 2 minutes of deliberating. You should have a really good idea what you're going to do. So that helps with pace of play. So don't just sit there, twiddling your thumbs. Pay attention and be like, okay, this is the called shot. If they make this, this is what we're going to do. So you just go up and you can call the shot. It kind of helps everyone on your team, their team, pace of play. So yeah, have an idea of what you're going to do.
Good point.
And lots of times, even with your own thrower, if they're wide, what's my plan? Lots of times there's a great plan B. Always be aware of what those options are.
Definitely. I have a personal question. So on occasion, I've had an opportunity to get a big lead, and somehow I just, a couple ends later, all of a sudden I'm being one-pointed to death. Is there any fail-safe strategy that you can get rid of hammer?
Draw the button on your last. That's it. That's the fail-safe strategy.
Make your shots.
So thank you for joining us tonight for the strategy panel discussion. Thanks, Tate. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Deb. You guys have been fantastic. Love the insights. Really appreciate it. And hope you guys learned a lot about skipping and how to become a great skip. Thank you and have a great night from Up Your Game.